Yep, 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 yep.
Yes, it's the Finnish football show. And so it ends with 3 group games played in 10 days. Finland team managed a goal, a win, and finished 3rd in Group B. But unfortunately, wasn't enough for the Huuhkajat to qualify for the knockout stage. But they did themselves and the whole country proud. Sorry for keeping you waiting, listener. After the Belgium game, we wanted to get a review of the Belgian game out, but we also wanted to wait and see if Finland qualified. And then the Johannes or midsummer holiday kept us all apart a little bit longer, but we're back. So today I'm joined by Mark Hayton. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
By Rich. Hi, Rich.
Hello.
And by Keke.
Moi.
Hi, Keke. Sorry. And we're together today to review that final group game against Belgium and kind of discuss how we felt while waiting for the final group positions to be decided. We're also going to choose our Huuhkajat player of the Euros before we maybe turn our attention to transfer news, speculation, or just mere gossip, and look at the domestic Veikkausliiga season. We've also got a few questions from followers and listeners, hopefully both. So we'll come to those at certain stages throughout the show as well. But maybe now is a good time to listen to that whistle blow, and let's look back at Finland 0, Belgium 2. Rich, how were we? What were we thinking about this game before it started, and then maybe we'll look at how our expectations matched up with the outcome.
I think everyone got so het up with the permutations of the various group standings and everything, and the kind of variable from a lot of people is how many would Belgium score. Finland defensively did really well for 70, 75 minutes. Belgium had couple of good chances. Radetzky made some fantastic saves. Lucky that Romelu Lukaku's shoe was a couple of sizes bigger than ideal. And yeah, unfortunately, the goals that went in, I memean, 2-0 in hindsight isn't a bad score when you see what Belgium did to Russia and how they came out the blocks after they went down to Denmark. But the first goal was just a fluke own goal off Radetzky, which, I mean, he added afterwards, what the F can you do about it? In the interview, it kind of hit the post and bounced in off him. As you know, he can only react so quickly.
He's not shy of dropping an F-bomb either, is he?
He's not.
As we discovered ourselves.
Well, you know, saying that on state TV, when you think if they'd done that on the BBC, it would have been thousands of complaints. But and then a few minutes later, Lukaku scored, and I think at that point you could see, I think had that come first, and Radetzky didn't say, he might have maybe made an effort, but he almost looked like that defense had been beaten, and it kind of was a bit too much for him. But I mean, Finland, yeah, did well. Again, you know, and this is something we'll come to on our kind of review of the group stage. They didn't really offer a huge amount going forward because it's Belgium and so on. But I think on the strength of that game, I mean, they did fine, but you know, we'll go into it later. But I think, yeah, 2-0 was a decent result, honestly, for both sides, really.
Anyone got anything to add specifically about the Belgian game, as opposed to the whole group in general?
I think you have to ask or admit to yourself, how did you feel when I think we all saw that Lukaku goal that was knocked off for offside, and I think, at least where I was, I think we all thought, oh, we're going to get this. We're going to nick a point. This is our day. We're like, it's going to even itself up, because when we saw it live and when we saw the replay, we thought, well, no, he's clearly on, and we've lost it here. And then when the ref came back and gave it as an offside, I thought, I think we might just absolutely nick this one. What I would say is that not too long after that, we then made 3 substitutions that again, I think probably didn't help us. So Sparv came off for Schüller, as he does on the hour these days. Kauko came on for Pohjanpalo, like Kauko. but I thought that was an interesting decision. And then Alho came on for Urunen. And I also thought Urunen had been quite good going forward. I think both Urunen and Pohjanpalo looked a bit leggy, but I also thought if you're going to make those substitutions, is it right to bring on Kauko and Alho? Are they the good guys to bring in? I thought Alho he was industrious down the right when he switched over, but somehow I think we became a little bit less potent in the final third. Not that we've done that well in getting the ball to them, but yeah.
It kind of at that time of those substitutions went to what I suggested could be our opening formation with three sort of solid central midfielders and Lod linking up with Pukki. Interesting when you're chasing a game to sort of to sort of drop into that sort of more defensive mode. So yeah, I agree with you about that. Keke.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as Rich touched on there, for the first, I mean, Rich and myself were together again in the famous Three Kings, and for those of you who have seen some of the photos, we had the pod listener Jamie in there with his Finnish football show Ilves t-shirt on. So good on Jamie. But yeah, as Rich said about the defensive display for 75 minutes, we sort of by hook or by crook through grit and determination, we kept them at bay. And then for that second goal, when Lukaku span O'Shaughnessy and smashed it in the net, obviously devastation is the overriding feeling. But then once the dust sort of settles, you think to yourself, well, that's a youngish Veikkausliiga defender against a geezer who smashed in I don't know how many goals in Serie A and won the league in Italy. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, you can't feel too hard done by. I don't think. I think Ariuri playing his football in Cyprus over the last few seasons. O'Shaughnessy, who I mentioned in the Veikkausliiga. Toivio, who's playing in Sweden, up against the big boys of Belgium. The overriding emotion for me throughout. Obviously, we'll get onto the whole tournament, but yeah, even that 2-0 defeat, the overriding emotion was pride, really.
Rich.
I think something we talked about on our WhatsApp group, but we haven't here yet, was when Sparv came off, and again, like Mark hinted about the substitutions that were made. I think it's almost like you could see the cracks a little bit, and things like that kind of expose what Sparv brings to the team. And I think it's difficult to look because, again, his numbers are what they are, and Kamara was the one who made the most, I think, one of the top interceptions in the group stages and everything. But, the way that the team was set up, the way that their mentality was there, I think when you remove Sparv and change that midfield, again, I mean, it's something that, again, going back to watching Arsenal, Arsene Wenger used to change the structure of the team and then it would all go a little bit wrong to try and defend a point or defend a win. And in this, by changing that, I think it's kind of disrupted things a little bit, and you've removed the person who's got the most influence. And as we talked about before, one of his strengths is bringing the best out of his teammates. And if you suddenly change that, then you're going to have disruption, especially in the middle of the pitch when you've got Kevin De Bruyne and Lukaku sitting there waiting to pounce. I think that's, unfortunately, whether Sparv could last the 90 minutes or not, I don't know. But he hadn't played against Russia, so he had 9 days in between games. I don't think keeping him on for another 15 minutes would have been the worst thing in the world.
I think, I mean, you got to see in the Belgium game really what his key difference is between him and Schiller. So I think when we look at that defensive midfield position, we look at us out of possession and how you harry, intercept, and tackle. But actually, Sparv's major contribution is how good he is when we're in possession, because he's always an open ball for anybody who's in possession in our own final third or in our own half. He's always available. He's always a good way to diffuse a press. I mean, Lukaku, Hazard, De Bruyne, he didn't get caught in possession once. They didn't get a nick on him. he always gets the ball, he always recycles it and moves it along, and he keeps that press at bay because he keeps the ball shifting around our back third. Every now and again he connects it to the front foot, and I think that's the thing that we lost when Schuler came on. We weren't able to keep the ball for extended periods of time anymore.
Shall we look, before we talk about the waiting for the final games in other groups to discover our fate? Shall we look back at the group a little bit more? Rich, what do you want to lead us off?
I think the strange thing about it is that with obviously the Denmark game and the result from there, that I think we knew at the time was slightly skewed by the events of what happened, and I think hindsight and Denmark's performances and results since have shown that what they're really capable of. To come away from there with the 3 points and to play well, albeit on the back foot against Belgium for so much of the game, I think it's almost put that Russia match into perspective as to that's where it was lost. And to come out of that group with 3 points at the start of the tournament, if they said, "Oh, we come third in the group with 3 points," happy days, brilliant, great. But there is that now tinge of what could have been had they got a point of Russia. That would have almost certainly guaranteed them into the last 16, no matter what happened in the last game. And I think that kind of just makes it a little bit tougher to swallow what would have been a perfectly acceptable performance. And now we're sitting there going, had the team lined up a little bit more on the front foot against Russia, had they been a little bit more aggressive, because we've seen how the teams that beat Russia did, they went at them. Denmark did it, Belgium did it. And I think Finland seemed to be so set up to protect and hit them on the break that when they had a chance to really go there and grab something, and obviously there's the goal that was ruled out and everything, but I think coming away from that, you do have there is that little bit of regret that they should have got 4 points.
For me, it was like these big, each game there was one of these big moments. And of course, the Denmark game was the Christian Eriksen incident. And then we talked about it, I think, after the Russia game, that getting that early goal and then losing it straight away after seemed to really knock us back. And it's those kind of sliding doors moments, isn't it? What if? I would quite happily have let Lukaku have that offside goal if Jole could have had his offside goal a week earlier. Keke.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just echo what Rich said. Really, we're all going to look back at this and look at the Russia game as the missed opportunity. I mean, we seem to we hear about coaches, and obviously Rich mentioned Arsene Wenger a minute ago, and we've Rich has watched plenty of Arsenal games over the years, but you have them managers who. There's managers who stick to their own plan and don't change the plan despite the opposition. And then there's managers or coaches who will look at the opposition and decide how to play. And I think that River possibly just went with his sort of tried and tested method of against so-called superior opposition, where the plan was to sort of invite them on and then try and hit them on the break. But as Rich said, if we'd have been a bit more forward thinking and a bit more attacking, a bit more on the front foot, a bit more aggressive, we may well have got something out of that game. And that's going to be the way it goes now. We're forever going to look back and look at that Russia game and look at that as a missed opportunity. And with them being the opposition as well, it's an even tougher one to take. I think the old big brother from over the road. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think you can't be too harsh, because I think, first of all, after the disallowed goal, I think there was another comment. There was the Spain goal, the Morata goal, and then there was a goal for Poulsen, the fourth goal against Wales, which was yesterday, I think. And they're on about the same sort of line as where Jole was, with the same sort of blurred decision. So that was an incredibly fine margin. After that goal was disallowed, I don't remember Raitala being that far forward ever again. So he nicked the ball, what, like 20 yards inside the Russian half for that one. And I don't ever remember him getting that high up the pitch for the remainder of the game. And then I think the only thing that I think about in terms of being harsh is that we did make 3 or 4 half chances with balls through the back. And I personally think that we were just a bit unlucky, both from the decisions from the goal being disallowed, but I think we were also unlucky because I don't think Teemu was fit. I don't think Teemu Pukki was 100%. I think Teemu Pukki, who's 100% fit from the qualifying or from the Nations League campaign, he gets onto the through balls, shrugs off the defender and picks his spot. And there's not a second thought. And I think in this one, he was, just not even half a yard, just a bit off the pace, a bit not sharp. And he looked leggy. Rich?
I mean, he's come out and said that you can see, and he felt that he'd missed 5 weeks of playing football. He said his ankle was absolutely fine, but his sharpness, his match fitness, that kind of extra 5-10% that he needs to be the Teemu Pukki we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years was gone because, while physically he was fine, he didn't have that sharpness. And the fact that he got subbed at 75 minutes in the first 2 games, and then there's a lot of debate about the decisions, especially in the Russia game, of who came on, what happened there. But had it been a fully fit Pukki, we'd have seen something different. I think we saw in the Denmark game he was marked out of the game, but that was almost accounted for, and it gave space for Pohjanpalo. But you do think that the Russia game, there were chances where if he were fully fit, it would have been a different story. So again, it's what could have been, but unfortunate.
Okay.
Well, that scenario will then beg the question: is a 100% fit Freddie Jensen better than a 60-70% fit Teemu Pukki? But we're not the manager, are we? But that's a forever wonder what if, isn't it? If maybe you'd have let Teme have a little rest for the Russia game and tried one of the others who possibly was 100% fit, that'd have been the only other throw of the dice, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, and that kind of thing. Because if you put Freddie on and then it doesn't work, what the headlines are, Rive drops Pukki, and I think you can't have it that way. I think the other thing is I've seen a lot of sort of stuff on Twitter, which is I have to say really weird, because I've seen Twitter storms before about Premier League and about English football. I haven't really seen this Twitter storm about Finnish football and decisions, but I've now seen obviously criticism of Rive, and I think you've got to say, like, we made in each game 2 or 3 half chances, possible exception of the Belgium game where they were just incredibly strong, and that's how many chances we usually make. We usually make 3 or 4 chances on a break, and we usually take one of them. And we did in Denmark. We didn't in Russia. It's unlucky.
I don't know about you guys, but waiting. Well, Rich did a short blog just before the Belgium game showing all the permutations of how Finland might get through, and I put a link here in the blog post. I sat down to watch France-Portugal on Wednesday night, and by that time all the permutations had lined up that we needed France to win by 4 goals, and it absolutely ruined my watching of that game, because when it became clear that they weren't going to score 4 goals, I got the ump and I couldn't just sit there and watch the game and enjoy it. I was sitting there thinking, it's not fair, and we're not going to get there, and I don't care about this. And rather than just enjoying 2 heavyweights slugging it out to a 2-2 draw, how were you guys were sort of posting and tweeting and messaging about it sort of during that day. How were your emotions as you were leading up to the final games on the Wednesday night?
The weird thing is that after the Belgium game, we knew what would happen. It would have to be, I think, 4 out of 5 things would have to go the right way. The first of them would be that Croatia would have to draw with Scotland. So, of course, then Croatia beat Scotland and knocked them out, which meant that on the final day, all 4 fixtures had to go in a particular way. So you had Spain beating Slovakia 5-0. Brilliant. That's what we needed. What was the other? Sweden not losing to Poland. Brilliant. Happy days. That went well. And then, so in the final game, it had to be either France win by 4 goals or Hungary win by 4 goals. And then the other result. And of course, neither of those happened. Of course, had France won and Germany draw, that would have been fine as well. But it's, it was a little bit, because you're sitting there watching, the France game was quite entertaining, it's, and we're sitting there going, like, even with into injury time, or if they get 4 more. And it was difficult to watch, because of course when you start adding these things in, especially in Finland's case, they only had to wait 48 hours. I think before, in the previous tournament, I think Albania had to wait 4 days for their fate to be confirmed. And in hindsight, Finland effectively went out by 1. Had they scored 1, or had Ukraine conceded another, then it would have been all different. But that's the way it is. But it was a tense, because especially when, I think after the first round of games on the Wednesday, and Spain won and Sweden won, you're thinking, it's on, here we go. But yeah, it's painful.
Before we talk about our potential players, Finland player of the Euros, so we had a little chat about this the other day. So I'm hoping that you guys are all going to at least mention the person you mentioned in the in our WhatsApp messages, and then we can perhaps choose our overall a winner that we all agree. But maybe now's a good time to answer the questions that came in on Twitter and Instagram this afternoon. Firstly, from Axel RK on Twitter, who asked, what repercussions do you think that this, the Euros performance will have on the future of Finnish football? Do you think that Finnish players and teams will be reevaluated because of this milestone?
Well, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to bump us up the FIFA rankings. The win in Denmark got us 8 places up. I also think we earn money from qualifying for this tournament, and we earn TV rights. So the first.
Do we earn anything as the Finnish football show as well? Is it like trickle down economics?
The kitty is not exactly empty, Mark. It's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not overflowing, but there's something in there. But so there is going to be more money coming in, which is always a good thing for for us, for a country like us, where we need to support the game a little bit more. I think also we'll probably be on scouting radars a little bit now, because we've proved that we've got like at least a squad's worth of decent quality players. So I think there'll be kind of more interest, because I think a lot of the European or Nordic scouts have kind of been shrugging off Finland for a couple of years. We get the occasional groups through and clubs through who try to pick up people as they come through, but we don't get that much dedicated, let's say, regional work. So I think we have raised attention. We will get some money, and then I think it will also kind of the uptake here for the population has been, as you know, Mark, fantastic. I mean, like there's as Rich pointed out last time, there's Huuhkajat branded souls, and a bunch of like all that sort of stuff. So I think interest will be up. We get a bit more money. I think we'll get a bit more attention. Rich.
I think, again, like Mark said, that the money is going to come in handy, because we've seen that the money from UEFA and FIFA for votes has been spent on a lot of infrastructure and developing coaching and all of the pitches and stuff. And I think the kids are going to see that. And I mean, there's always this long debate, and this thing I get asked all the time about hockey, which is more popular. And of course, hockey is more popular as a spectator sport at the top level, but that's changing. Football's cheaper than hockey. It's still pricey compared to some countries, but it's becoming more appealing. Kids are seeing Finnish players going abroad again that they haven't done for a long time. Players like Hradecki, Pukki, and all that. I think it just generally lifts the profile. And it's stuff that you can't really quantify. And this kind of thing, we may not see that trickle down for 10, 15 years. We may have to go through a spell of not qualifying again, and then this next generation come through. It's going to be one of those things, that those infrastructure and all weather pitches and coaching, they haven't contributed to this squad. This is a squad of players, a lot of whom the key players have peaked at the right time, and they've played together for a long time with a coach who knows them. That's got nothing to do with what's been going on in the background. So there's a lot of factors, and I think it's just good for the profile, and hopefully just gets that bit more attention.
Yeah,
Keke.
just on that point about raising the profile of Finnish football abroad. I mean, we're going to move on to talk about our Huuhkajat of the tournament, but just on the point of Radetzky, I mean, his performances do stand out because we had X amount of shots peppering our goal, but watching the games from here in England, it was like the BBC or ITV pundits had never heard of him. I mean, this geezer is playing at one of the top level clubs in the Bundesliga, featuring regularly in the Europa League / Champions League. And you got, I don't want to dig anyone out personally, but you got people like Lee Dixon and Martin Keown and the people, Danny Murphy, people like that. And they're going, oh, where on earth did Finland find this goalie? And you're like, come on.
He's been here since he was 2. I mean, that's where we found him.
I mean, it's I'm not saying that professional club scouts are as blasé as BBC pundits who are just turning up, taking their cash and talking about crap that happened 30 years ago. But, I do think that Finland featuring in the Euros may possibly, as Mark said, put Finland back on the radar for some of these scouts. So, yeah, hopefully.
We're gonna talk also about transfers and players being available, but tying in with what Mark said before about interest from clubs. There's quite a lot of players in the Finland squad who have played well and potentially don't have a club this summer. Yeah. So they've got to be worth a chance for. I mean, I don't care if they go to the UK or if they go somewhere else, but at least a chance of building on that. Well, actually, Mark, did you want to say something on that same subject, or?
Yeah, there was one last thing. So I was having a pint with a friend who I know who works in the Helsingin Piiri for football, and one of the things that he actually mentioned about the biggest problem in Finnish football at a youth level at the minute is coaches. And one of the things they hope is going to happen from this tournament is that people who understand the game of football get into coaching at local and grassroots level, because at the minute the predominant population of like coaches and youth coaches, so amateur and youth coaches in Finland, is actually just sort of parents or guys with cars that sort of shuttle. They bring food and they bring balls and they set stuff up, but they don't have a great deal of sort of tactical knowledge and awareness. And one of the big focus areas at least for the Paloliito and for the guys here in the outskirts of Helsinki, let's say, is to try and get more sort of football enthusiasts involved with coaching the younger generation and the other ones. Rich.
I did see a quote around that. I think they said by the end of this cycle of finances or something, they wanted every registered player to have a registered qualified coach. I don't know what the proportion is, how many kids would be under this particular coach, but I think they want enough people to be trained. I mean, this was the thing that in the UK they did. I mean, McDonald's, I think, were the main people behind it in the UK, getting people coached and as part of the FA agreement. But that's what they're looking for, this money that they've got from UEFA, FIFA, sponsors and all that. They want to really tap into that junior level. But yeah, there is a goal that every club or every organisation has at least one fully super duper qualified coach in there.
So if you're in Finland and you've been on Twitter and you've been digging out Marco Canava for his substitutions, drop put your phone down and get your boots on and go and teach some kids.
Yeah, you get a very good point. And I was saying before about sort of the players around the age of 30 looking for clubs, and it sort of ties in with a question from Alfred and Cameron at Nordic Footy, who asked, with a lot of the Finland squad aged over 30, do you think the foundations are set for Finland into the future? So how do we feel now that several of them are potentially aging out of the squad in the next few years? People coming through, Keke.
I mean, this is a hot topic for us. We've been discussing it between the four of us quite extensively. The news came out just a couple of days ago that Mr. Sparv is going to continue to be available for selection for the national team. So I mean, that's good news for everybody. you know, the longer he can go on, the better, I think. But obviously, we've already discussed and we've all seen what he brings to the team, and what, more importantly, what disappears from the team when he's removed from the pitch. But yeah, that's a massively interesting point. You know, you got a lot of players who are 30, 31, that sort of age. How long are they going to be about? I mean, as I said, we spoke together, and our general feeling, you know, is that they'll hang about for these World Cup qualifiers, and then maybe some decisions will be made. But there's going to be some big boots to fill. I mean, we have got some up and coming youngsters, but yeah, most as we've seen, most of those have already broken through into the outskirts of the squad. So just remains to be seen who else they've got hiding around the corner who can fill those big massive player-shaped holes when they do emerge.
I do. I know that you tease me for money bags, Asiko, spending dosh and not succeeding for the last 6 years. But it is noticeable this year, maybe starting last year, the number of academy players that are in the squad, and I think this is a trend that will continue as well, and not only in the squad but also in the the national team age group sides as well. So Ville Tikkanen's in the under-21s, and Matthias Vainienpää, and someone else who's gone out of my mind right now. Anyway, are in the under-18s, under-19s. So from this sort of black and yellow perspective, you can start to see some of these younger players coming through. It's also interesting that with the Finland under-21s team, there's Joaquin Gomez, friend of the show, who's the head coach at HIFK, and working with the under-21s, and he's actually taken one or two of Asiko's younger academy players to Helsinki on loan for this year to try and get these players just that experience of first team football. I think we've talked to a lot of the interviews we've done over the last year. We've asked this question about young Finns going away, and there seems to be the feeling that they go away and they get good coaching in basic football technique, but then they don't necessarily get to play men's football. And now you've got players that are maybe getting to play men's football. Are they being coached in good football technique? I hope so. The quality of coaching seems to be improving in the Veikkausliiga. So it'd be interesting to see that generation if they come into Veikkausliiga, make appearances and move on from there. I think this is something we could talk about a lot more in another show. But I'm very aware that in 20 minutes' time, there's another game of Euro 2020 football starting. I think I just wanted also to give a shout out to Juuso Vita on Twitter. He had some thoughts about our approach in the Russia game. I think maybe we gave our opinions there. He said that he thought we should have played a more progressive 4-4-2 and brought on Force rather than Lappalainen towards the end. Against what is maybe one of the weakest Russia sides of all time. I think we kind of covered our thoughts on that, but thanks to you, so for the words.
Go back one show, and I think we pretty much agree with a lot of what you said.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say just about those the young kids in the next generation is there's a really nice problem to solve for the youngsters, which is that you've got who's like Soiri's still around, Taylor's still around, Valakari's still around, Pohjanpalo's still around. So we've got a lot of creative players that are in that. Jensen's also, early 20s, or mid 20s. So you've got 4 or 5 players that are sort of creative that are in that striker/forward area. So it might not be, I don't know we're not really that big on formations and the rest of it. But in terms of the next sort of generation after this group goes, we've got quite a lot of offensive, creative talent waiting in the wings.
Okay, so who were our player of the Euros? Let's each nominate the person that we talked about in the group chat over the weekend. I think it's one thing was said that Paulus Ariuri and Joona Toivio were solid. They did everything that they always do, but none of us actually picked them as someone who stood out because they do what they always do. Mark, who was your pick?
I went with Robin Lod, actually, because I thought going into the tournament, understanding that we definitely have this back 5/back 3, I thought Lod leading up to it had sort of struggled to sit in that midfield 3. And so I was sort of stuck about, is he going to play off the shoulder from Pukki, or is he going to play in the midfield 3? And if he is he going to be able to hold his own? I thought he adapted incredibly well to being in that midfield 3. He covered a lot of ground. He did really a lot of work, more work than I've ever seen him do in terms of his pressing ability. And I think his passing and his connecting play, I thought was just really, really good. I think in all of the games, he was at least our most creative player, if not our most effective player in moving the ball. So Robin Lod for me.
Rich, who did you go for?
Well, I took the easy option. I think I was the first to reply to the question. So I went for that unknown goalkeeper who they've plucked from thin air, Lucas Radetsky. I luckily, these things have been committed to audio, and that on several podcasts I've guested on in the run up to this, and they asked, who's Finland's best player, and I think on all of them I said as an individual, it probably is Radetsky. He's been, as Keith said, at the top level really in Germany for 5 or 6 years. We've seen what he can do as a shot stopper, fantastic. And, I think he's done so well that the own goal that wasn't his fault at all, because 99.9% of the goalkeepers in the world that would have gone in off. He made enough saves to keep Finland in the tournament. The penalty save in the first game. He made superb reaction saves in the other two as well. And it's just good to see, I say finally, but he's getting some credit in the mainstream media beyond people who watch the Bundesliga in Finland. We've all known how good he could potentially be. He's gone on to be, very, very good. And I think this tournament, certainly in the first round, he was probably the best goalkeeper of all the 24.
He was named in the team of the group stages, wasn't he?
I think, statistically, I think there was Who Scored, who do a lot of the stats, and that they had him as the number one. And I think obviously he had more to do than some, but I think he showed in that, the goals he conceded. I mean, the Russia goal was a fantastic goal. He also conceded a free cone goal and a goal. The second goal against Belgium was just a bit of what he did and the level that he performed at was absolutely pivotal to how well Finland did.
I went for Jere Urunen, playing at sort of left wing back, I suppose. And before the competition started, we were talking about the formation, who'd been picked for the squad, who would play where, and which players were being named as defenders, and who was going to be providing the width. And the first choice, the starting team didn't change that much, and not that many of the squad actually got onto the pitch as subs either. So there was no Suori, Taylor. Some of the Jensen maybe got a glimpse, but not a lot of these players that we've sort of come to see as being quite exciting. But I just noticed Urunen making gains down the left wing. We as a team didn't create enough. Obviously, we scored 2 goals, cheated out of one, and I don't know. I just liked the way he was playing down that wing. And I think linking up with Lod and linking up with whichever of the strikers was just ahead of him. So it caught my eye. Although he's been there for a few years, he caught my eye during these few games. Keke.
I think he's caught. Obviously, we'll move on to transfers, all the movers and shakers. But I think Jere might be someone who's caught another few eyes around Europe as well. But yeah, I mean, everyone you've mentioned has been fantastic. Same as you guys, that they're the outstanding players. But touched on it previously when we was just chatting about the Belgium game. But I plumped for Daniel O'Shaughnessy, simply because, you know, with his defensive partners for over an hour for the majority of that Belgium game, kept one of the world's top strikers quiet, you know, and for a lad who's playing in the Veikkausliiga, obviously doing very well, that, you know, league champion, cup winner, all that business. But, you know, he spent a little bit of time bouncing around. I think he had a spell at Cheltenham Town, didn't he? And you know,
Braintree as well.
Yeah, Braintree, you know. And all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, obviously, but yeah, and then he's coming up against Romelu Lukaku, who's, you know, world famous. Everyone knows him and knows what he's capable of. And I think he stepped up to the challenge. You know, ultimately Lukaku got his goal in the end. But yeah, just wanted to give big Oshagu a shout out because he caught my eye. Played really well.
Yeah, I think deserved, and also nice that the only Veikkausliiga based player, you know, was in there and sort of held his own, more than held his own. But do we agree there's only one actual star? The man has to be friend of the show, the big number one, Lukas Radetsky.
Yeah, no contest.
Okay. Let's have a round of applause then. Let's do that. Although Mark's microphone is muted, so that was a very silent, very silent from
I don't know what
his end. Never mind. We gave him the applause he needed. I think maybe there's a few relatively smaller things for us to touch on, but there has been a bit of a scandal, I suppose, in Finland since people have come back from traveling to St Petersburg. There's now been 140 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the Helsinki region, and there's been a bit of mudslinging going around. I don't know if we necessarily need to sling any more mud, but I think it's something, you know, it's connected to Finnish football. It's something that we should at least pass comment on. Mark, you're based down in that area. Any local perspectives?
Only that it was 130. 130 is not like crazy abnormal. So new cases it's been decreasing obviously for the last couple of months, and the average recently has been like sort of 50, 60 or so new cases, and so it's about triple of what we usually go through. But in terms of a local perspective, there's not that much here. I think that the big concern about some of the SMU cause is that a couple of the fans were interviewed when they came back in, and they made the evening news because they were a couple of sheets to the wind, which is English colloquialism for they've had a couple of pints, and they were saying stuff like, I don't read the guidance from the doctors or from hospitals. I'm just gonna come back, and then I'm gonna go up to Levy, and I'm gonna have myself a big old party. And that kind of disregard, I think, for what the guidance is, which is that you should isolate whenever you come back from abroad, and particularly if you've been in a group where there's been some potential exposures. You know, it's not a good look. It raised a bit of concern both on the telly, on the media, on the visual media, and also in the papers.
Keke.
Well, yeah, I mean, this has made me a little bit angry, really. I mean, obviously we're four Brits, four English fellas, so we're all too familiar with the tabloid media digging out football fans and for their own agenda and their own headlines. But we all are sensible enough to know that in any walk of life, in any group in society, you're going to have one or two wallies. Yeah, it doesn't matter who you are, and you know, these so-called journalists they could have interviewed 50 people. They could have specifically targeted the fellas who have come along quite clearly, you know, one too many, you know. And I can tell you now, all the people who I know personally, most of them are still in the middle of nowhere in their kesämökki at the moment, carrying out their isolation. People who came back from from St Petersburg. They've gone from there straight to their own little Kesamaki, and they're staying out of the way of everyone, and they're doing their tests. And I just think it's, and to be, the thing that makes me most upset is that, another personal friend of mine, the communications officer for SMJK, he's had these hacks phoning him up and basically asking him how he feels for being responsible for the potential deaths of thousands of Finns, because coronavirus has come back to the country on his bus, and for people to be ringing a geezer up and just saying that sort of rubbish to him down the phone is just, I just think that's beyond journalism, really. That's just something else. So, I mean, we all know for a fact, and I've spoken to Jussi Hartikainen again today, like just on the WhatsApp. We all know for a fact that the SMJK did everything they could. They gave out all the advice. They continue to give out advice a week after the Finland have pretty much exited the tournament. They continue to give out the advice about isolation and testing to their members. So I just think, cheap headlines, it's all too easy, isn't it?
Mark?
Yeah, so I was going to say that in addition to the majority of guys who are back and isolating, there's also a small group that are still in Russia. So the guys who got tested and tested positive while in situ, basically they shouldn't leave the country, and they haven't. So there's a small group of Finns sitting now in somewhere around St Petersburg waiting to do their additional testing and to make sure that they don't have it, and if they do, then to get the correct isolated quarantined passage back into the country. So it isn't the case that I think that the picture that some people want to paint is that there's an unruly mob in a bus thundering its way back to Finland. But at least for all the traveling that I did personally and that I've seen from mates who have gone, we've been sort of corona tested more than anybody else that I've ever seen. We did sort of four or five tests in 5 days, and that as I think one of us said, is that if this was going to happen with or without the SMJK, it's probably better that they got all the stuff in place that they did. Rich?
I mean, I'm going to the England-Germany game on Tuesday, and apparently the only thing I need to show to get, I mean, admittedly, Wembley isn't the most beautiful part of London, but it's I just have to show a screenshot of a phone app that says that I haven't got COVID. I just have to prove a negative test, and to be honest, they're not going to verify whose it is as long as I show them that. I mean, the protocols in place are there for a reason, and of course, this is the problem. I mean, I'm not going to go into my day job, but you deal with people who don't always follow the rules, and you deal with people who like to big up the fact they don't. I mean, there's people who don't wear masks and are proud of it, all that sort of stuff. So, you can't do those kind of tests, unfortunately. But it does seem to be a bit of an easy target. People have gone abroad. A lot more people have gone abroad for various other reasons, fair or foul, and potentially brought COVID back. It's just that football fans are an easy target.
Okay, I think Keke particularly passionately, eloquently, and very controlled fury came across there. I like it. Well done. Just to, I guess, maybe to round up this Huuhkajat section by just saying that the next competitive games for the national team come at the beginning of September. So there's a home game against Kazakhstan. These are all World Cup qualifiers. So a home game against Kazakhstan on the 4th of September. And an away game against France on the 7th of September. We will be back well before then to keep you updated and remind you all about that. This first half has lasted for about 50 minutes. The second half is going to be a lot shorter. But I think if the referee blows his whistle and we can do just a little bit of halftime merch selling, walking around with a tray of goodies and seeing if anyone wants to help us out. We've got the Finnish Football Show store on TeePublic. We've also got we got a fancy football team, a fancy football competition. There's 30 teams in there. I don't want to talk about it too much, so I'm languishing around 29th out of 30. I'm catching up on Rich, actually. I'm only 4 points behind you, big man, so I'm coming for you. I'm just desperate not to finish bottom, having languished there for the last 2 weeks. But the winner gets a T-shirt from our store. So if you're in that competition, get yourself to tpublic.com/Finnish football show, and you'll find our range, and the winner gets their choice of T-shirt from there. And also the buymeacoffee.com/FFS podcast, where you can make a donation. We've had some very generous donations so far, and to everyone, thank you for that. That's going to help go to the running costs of the show. And if you go to the blog post, wherever you're listening to this, there'll be a link there to show notes and links. Go to the blog post, you'll find where you can buy the merch and make a donation. We don't have an onion for this week, Mark. So you do have an onion?
I could do one.
Oh, you've got, okay. So let's go. Let's start the second half, and let's do your onion.
Okay, have we done? I have to check, so I haven't written this down. I don't think we've done tuhnu before. Tuhnu. So a tuhnu is like it's like if you try to it's like a miss kick. So if the cross comes in and you miss the ball, and then you give it like a little bit of a toe punt, but it sort of skews off in a different direction, or it only goes like a centimeter from your foot. That's a tuhnu.
How does tuhnu actually translate directly? I think
it's like a punt. This is why we write them down beforehand. I'll have to think about it.
And when I said we don't have one this week, that was your perfect out, and yet you still jumped in both feet.
Well, I have the word, and I know what it means.
That's true. Well, we'll find the word and we'll put it in the show notes. But it's tuhnu, and it means a miss kick. Very, very good. Good one off the top of your head. I guess, Mark, you know that word because you do so many of them in a game.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Famous for them. I'm famous for them.
Let's go into the second half, and we got here some like new contracts and transfer gossip, and then just maybe a quick overview of the recent Veikkausliiga action. I'm not planning to read all the results out, but maybe we can have a quick overview of the league table before we wrap up. So first of all, new contracts. Nicky Mampa got a new contract.
Yeah, got a new 2-year contract at Venezia after his heroics in getting them promoted. It's quite surprising, to be honest. I think 2 years at his age, but he's obviously done enough on the pitch and behind the scenes to convince them to give him a decent deal. I mean, I guess going into Serie A, he probably won't be the number one, but to be fair, having that as your backup, if he's settled there, happy days. Fair play to him.
Mm. And we got a couple of confirmed transfers. We were talking earlier that Joni Kauko is moving as a free agent to ATK MB in Kolkata, it seems, and I put a link to that story in the notes there. He's 31. It's interesting to be moving to India, but if it's what do they call it? Indian Premier League, Indian Super League. I'm not quite sure which one they're in, but there's a bit of money to be made out there.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a surprise. I mean, we knew that he'd released a video saying "Tada" to the Esbjerg fans after his time there, and we had speculated where he might end up. And yeah, the news broke the other week or a few days ago that he was off to India. I mean, he's not the first to head out that way. I think we were just chatting off air, and yeah, the big names such as Robbie Keane, he's been out there. Our own Jussi Jääskeläinen has been out there. But yeah, was it one of the Kuchi brothers, Naz Kikuchi, has been out to India as well. So yeah, Joni joins that illustrious group. out in the Indian Super League. Yeah, but just a little bit of controversy. You described them as, what was the name of the club, Mark? ATK.
MB.
Yeah, their fans are very upset with this new branding. They want the
Oh.
they want the ATK got rid of. So,
Okay, because I searched ATK Kolkata and every story I saw mentioned this ATK MB, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's the name then.
ATK were the original club, Atletico Calcutta, that Jaskalainen signed for, and I think they've kind of, I don't know if it's like a Rangers scenario or they've been bought out and there's naming rights or something, but they've kind of turned into a new club.
How do you have enough time in your life to know details like that, Rich? I don't understand how you guys do it.
Yeah, my two kids helped me research these kind of things.
Are you telling us, Mark, that you don't watch or keep up to date on the Indian Premier League?
Don't know. I went to cricket the other night.
You do now, mate. You do now.
I barely keep up to date in
Now
what's
that
going
Mr.
on in my own back garden, let alone in India.
Now that Mr. Calco's there, we're all over the Indian Super League,
we certainly will be. And Keke, you mentioned that Linda Salstrom has moved to HJK Helsinki.
Yeah, Linda Salstrom, #1 goal scorer in Finnish football history, has made her way back home. She's left Paris FC after a couple of years, I think she had there. So she's signed for HJK in the Subway Kansallinen Liiga. So we'll look forward to seeing Linda in the blue and white of HJK, as well as the blue and white of Finland.
Very smooth, Keke. And what about some rumours? There's rumours about Glenn Kamara moving back to London, it seems, from Glasgow Rangers to Watford or Brentford. What do we think about this?
I think a move to the Premier League is always a good thing. I think he'd get in Brentford's team. They'd be in for a tough season, but I think they could definitely stay up. Watford are a proper club as well. Watford, did they have some deal with Italian clubs and Spanish clubs?
They're owned by the people that own, is it Palermo, Udinese and Granada in Spain. So their players tend to flip between the three.
I just wondered if we thought that having won the Scottish Premiership, that going to a recently promoted club was the right level for him. I was thinking maybe a mid-table Prem club. What do you think, Keke?
I mean, my own personal feeling is that he will stay in Glasgow for at least the foreseeable future. I mean, as you said, Rangers have won the league, so they're into the Champions League, and I don't think we can underestimate the Steven Gerrard factor either. I think I personally think that Glenn might hang about there for at least another season. But another story coming out of Scotland and Glasgow and Glenn's club, Glasgow Rangers, is that Colombian striker, former HJK man, might be on his way to Porto in Portugal. And if that happens, HJK are in for a bit of a cash windfall.
And they really need it as well, don't they? Just to strangle all the competition.
Well, I think they announced this year that they've made a hefty profit in this financial year, and I mean it's part of the sale that they got a 10% transfer fee and a friendly against Rangers, which I think turned out to be played during lockdown, didn't it? So they didn't make any money out of it, but it's they've done quite well. Again, the negotiations of, I think they were quite protracted when he moved to Scotland, but obviously in the long term, I mean that million or $1.5 million is going to be pretty much the turnover of most teams, and they're going to get that as a nice bonus just to make things nice and even.
And what about, there's rumours about Jesse Joronen as well? He came so close to promotion from Serie B in Italy with Brescia last year. Where's the rumours that he's heading to?
Well, most of the sports papers in Italy the other day all came out and said that he was being linked to Genoa, which is Serie A, so where he belongs really. How accurate that is, I don't really know, but I think he did so well when he was up the first time, albeit in a struggling team that went down, and was one of the highlights of a team that nearly got promoted again. So I think it's fair. And to be honest, I think his contract expires next year. So if Brescia are going to want any money, they're going to have to get it now.
Yeah.
So it might suit all parties, really.
And then we've got a couple of free agents in Tim Sparva, we've also already talked about, and Paulus Arajuri, a couple of players who perform well for the Huuhkajat at the Euros and now available on freeze.
Yeah. So Sparv said he's left AEL, and he said he'll make a decision after the Euros. Who knows? I mean, obviously he's got a young baby, which it tends to inform a lot of choices these days, and who knows where somewhere like Sweden seems to be a fairly logical move. But Ariuri said his contract's expiring this month, but he hasn't said whether he's leaving Paphos or not. So obviously, when you spoke to his brother and he was house sitting for him in Greece, I don't know if that's a sign that perhaps he's looking to stay or he hasn't quite made his mind up yet.
Got that suntan to maintain as well. He's gonna fade off. You don't keep the rays hitting it.
The Cypriot beach sort of lifestyle seemed to suit Paulus, didn't it? In a sort of castaway sort of way. The sun bleached hair and the tan skin there, it sort of suited him down to the ground. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I mean, obviously with these guys who are out of contract and also as we just said about Joni Kauko going to India, it'll be interesting to see how this does affect their international careers. I mean, you said there, Mark, that Joni is 31. I mean, I was chatting to Rich earlier, and the first change that seemed to happen in any of these games in the Euros and also in our recent international fixtures, Kauko seems to be the first player, sort of sub or fringe player, if you like, to be brought on. So Rive obviously does like him, but I just wonder, if Rive, like us, will be all over the Indian Super League now, or if that puts our Joni off the radar, so to speak. But yeah, he's got Valakari and Arajuri in Cyprus. That doesn't seem to worry him. So maybe Rivi doesn't mind where his players are playing as long as they're getting minutes.
So I think Rivas, he's always been about players playing games. He's always tended to pick players that were like if there was a good player but wasn't getting any games, then he's had no qualms. Like when Robin Hood went first to Minnesota and he didn't exactly play, he wasn't in a hurry to bring him back on a plane, and it's been the case for a couple of. Lassi Lappalainen was the same. So I think game time is the key. But Joni, that's a real head scratcher, because I mean, even in Esbjerg, like they liked him a hell of a lot. He wanted to stay there to help them get back up, and then they went to the playoffs last season and they didn't make it, and that's when he decided to leave and find somewhere new because he didn't want to be in the Danish second tier. But I mean, I wish him all the best. Hope he does really well. Hope that it's maybe the start of some bigger investments in the Indian Premier League. You never know.
We'll have to get him on and see what the man's got to say for himself.
Yeah, well,
that's
your mission, Keke. Get reaching out to people and see if you can get some. Yeah, exactly. Let's have a quick look just at what's been going on in the Veikkausliiga. Since
is that still going? I've been all over Europe.
It hasn't stopped. I've been to 2 live games during the Euros, and there's another one coming up on Wednesday at home.
Yep.
It's interesting. Actually, I think the Mariehamn Asukor game, unless I got it wrong in my calendar, I had it scheduled for Wednesday and then it was played on Thursday. So I don't know if that was moved because of the Euros or if I just got it wrong, but it would make sense not to play too many games when there's actually high profile international games going on. It's kind of as you were in the table, really, isn't it? Whether it was last season or earlier this season, there's Huuhkajat stretching away at the top. Played 10, won 9, 28 points. Second are Inter, played 10, won 7, 21 points. That's quite a big lead already. The top 3 have all played 10, and then there's a few teams that have played a few less. Kupsas a third, played 10, 19 points. Huuhkajat fourth, having only played 8 games on 15 points. And then somehow Seinäjoki are in the top half of the table. I didn't expect that. I didn't realise that had happened a third of the way into the season. Good Lord, I don't know where we're going.
I just wanted to point out that since most of us, but especially my mate Rich, was championing Marienham, they've dropped like a stone since then.
They haven't scored. They haven't scored in 13 halves of football. I think it's about 620 odd minutes now since they scored a league goal, and those were the 3 against Oulu. I think they scored 3 in about 5 minutes. So yeah, apologies. I mean, the tables walk because the 4 teams that are in Europe played games earlier to get them, because obviously the Conference League and Champions League games start in July. But yeah, it's a big.
So that's why they played 10, and others have played sort of 8 or 9. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's a big old gap though. But Oulu have only just won their first game, got their first points on the board, and because it was looking terminal for them at one point, but now they're only 1 point behind Cortepe. But yeah, the rest of it is just
who's the team? Which is the team they beat? Actually, so
yeah, exactly.
Two of them at the bottom there slugging it.
It was an important win for them, but yeah, I mean, it's all kind of ticking over. I mean, Huuhkajat just seem to be just grinding out wins, don't they? I mean, they've only conceded 5 goals in those 10 games, and yeah, the rest of the teams seem to be sort of scoring about a goal a game. Ilves seem to be lurching from good result to bad result. They're very inconsistent, and Lahti have started quite well as well, to be honest.
I did miss them as I was.
Yeah, they've given their coach a new contract. They're doing okay. I mean, they're perennially mid-table. In the 9 or 10 years I've been following closely, I don't think they've ever threatened really either end of the league. So it's just what they do. You know, you can always count on Lahti to just be sitting there, military medium.
We have a couple.
Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, the league has got a bit of a familiar. The league table has got a bit of a familiar sort of look to it, but I mean, it might come as a surprise to some, but maybe not to others. Obviously, we know Joachim Gomez, but to see EF Core there and sitting in, what is it, 4th place, and on Wednesday we got the Stadin derby coming up against Huuhkajat. So yeah, that'll be an exciting one, and I think that, you know, kudos to those guys down there, Antiniemi as well, another friend of the show, doing the business at EF Core.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see that Callum Ward, the goalkeeper that's on loan and then became a permanent transfer. Obviously, his dad's been sort of contacting us in the Facebook group, and he kept 2 clean sheets in his first 2 games, which is nice to see. He got a run and was doing really well. And I guess having Antiniemi as your coach, albeit he's off gallivanting in Europe at the moment, but it's nice to see. And yeah, that derby should be interesting. It's going to be, I think there's a fair attendance expected. Is it about 50,000? 50% capacity? I think they're looking at. Almost said it. They lost one of their key players, Pipe, if you're a Luddite like myself. He got sent off for a rather crude agricultural challenge in the last couple of minutes of their game the other day, so he's going to miss the game for suspension. So he's one of the Spaniards that they imported, who I think once looked at a Real Madrid shirt, therefore he's qualified to play in Finland.
That's Joaquin. That's Joaquin just using his network back home.
Yeah, cool.
Don't worry, Mosso will still be on hand to pick up his traditional red card on 30 minutes for giving a V sign to some random passerby.
He's not had one for a couple of weeks, has he?
Exactly, he's due.
You know why they're doing so well, though, don't you?
Go on.
It's all that beetroot juice, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I'm beginning to wonder if you're on a percentage as well.
Don't spill it down that nice white shirt.
No, quite right.
I reckon sponsor this podcast.
That would be nice. Hey, if anyone wants to sponsor this podcast, that would be nice. But I reckon for now that's probably a good place to wrap it up. So remember to follow our Facebook page for content coming directly from the Finnish Football Show team, our podcasts and blogs, and etc. And our numbers are growing, especially through the Euros, which is nice to see. You'll also find a link there to our Facebook group where there was a little bit more conversation, a little bit more chat, people reaching out to us and asking questions. And you'll find the links to those, as well as our Instagram page, YouTube channel, and Rich's Finnish Football Show TikTok. I can't even say it without a chuckle in my voice.
It's dying slowly.
Yeah, I'm sure. You could also follow one of us, all of us, on Twitter. I'm at Explore Finland. Mark, who are you?
At FC Suomi.
Rich, who are you?
Escape to Swarmy.
And Keke Mulleri, who are you?
I'm at Keke Mulleri.
Brilliantly disguised. Well done. Until the next Finnish Football Show, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Kiitos.